Association Simplifier webinar, which is a series of webinars that we're doing to help associations with some strategy development and technology trending issues that are helpful to associations. So this one is how to create a simple winning mobile app strategy. And if you do have any questions as we go through this, please put those in the Q&A section, or you can type anything in the chat window if you're having any technical issues or anything like that. If you can't hear us, all that fun stuff. So having said that, we'll get started. So a little background on Bros Group really quick. I don't want to make this about Bros Group, but we are the presenters for this series of webinars. And Bros Group is a technology firm that specializes in the association market, and we have clients across the entire nation, approaching about 100 association clients now. And we do everything from the mobile app development all the way up through managed service and infrastructure and cloud and any kind of technology-based project basically you can think of, and then integrating that with your business strategy. Now, there's two of us presenting today. John's going to be the main speaker. Myself, I'm Justin Kraft. I'm the Director of Marketing at Bros Group. I've served as a board member for the American Marketing Association for 2 years, co-marketing chair for Symposium 2014, 15 years experience managing business operations, creating marketing strategies in a variety of sectors, and very specifically have a lot of experience in the association market. As does John. John is the business development manager with Bros Group. He's also has been a Bros Group mobile solution project manager, a technology expert qualified by 5 years, collaborating on association-specific mobile application products, leader in developing business requirements, support, design, development of solutions, and manager of future state of business processes and solutions. So really good quality. John's a really good guy, done a lot of these mobile app projects, and we'll help you definitely when we get through some of these case studies and stuff we're going to look at today. What you should take away today is the types of mobile strategies. There's a couple ways to think about mobile strategies. We broke this down as complex versus simple. We're trying to help you develop a simple way of doing a mobile strategy. That may get more complex in the future, but starting simple is always the way to go when you jump into this world. Examples of what you can do to make your app engaging, a way to minimize mobile solution costs, the trending mobile app best practices, and answers to developing your mobile plan. And I'm going to bring this down to from kind of a broad perspective down to a smaller perspective when we start talking about the actual projects that we've worked on, and show you some examples of those. So mobile importance today, as you guys probably know, being in the world of associations and mobile getting talked about all the time when you go to events and things like that. Just wanted to hit on a few statistics here. 6.7 billion mobile subscriptions worldwide at this point, and estimated to increase to 9.3 billion in 2019. There are currently more mobile devices than people, which is an interesting stat, given the amount of people on the planet. 27% of companies worldwide plan to implement location-based marketing in 2013. So again, that's integrating into mobile, the geo-based stuff that you can do with mobile. 25% of international media and marketing executives see mobile as the most disruptive force in their industry. And time spent with mobile apps has overtaken television. Now, this is different from last year. Consumers are spending 177 minutes per day in mobile apps, up from 127 minutes per day in the same time last year. And they spend, to kind of compare against that, they spend about 168 minutes watching television every day. So 74% of U.S. consumers use location-based services on their smartphone, and 46% of mobile phone users use location-based services. So some just interesting stats to kind of bring this down, and the importance of mobile. Now, common mobile strategy gaps, as we start kind of breaking this down, a lot of the strategy gaps in a general mobile strategy, not just with apps, is there's no plan in place. There's inconsistent communication. There's an integration gap. Does it talk to your AMS, or is it Do you need that? Do you need that data to go somewhere? Does it need to integrate with your technologies? Disseminating information, applications providing user value, and does it work like it should? Obviously, if it doesn't work, no one's going to go back to it. You don't have a sticky app, it's not going to get used. So we kind of created a little infographic of kind of that similar thing and of the anatomy of a superpower mobile strategy. And that was actually, this is kind of stolen off of another webinar that we did on a full kind of a broad view mobile strategy. And it's the way to kind of think about it is that, you cut off an arm of this guy, and he's not gonna do as well. He's not gonna be able to fight the bad guys as well, right? So you cut off his head, it's not gonna work right. So purpose and business objectives being probably the most important thing. You have to understand what you're trying to do with your mobile app and kind of work backwards. And user interface and experience. If the interface and experience are horrible, they're not going to come back to it. Application development for all platforms. Does it work on tab as well as it works on phone? Does it work on iPhone as well as it works on somebody's Galaxy and Android? I mean, those things you got to be thinking about. Creating value for the user. Another huge component is the user getting something out of it. That's great. You have a mobile app in it, and it shows them some maybe meaningful information, but is it doing it in a way that creates value for the user? Is it really what your users want to see? You really have to have the marketing department involved with this, your technology department, everybody in the organization to make sure that value for the user is there. And integration. Integration is kind of an overlooked thing a lot of times. And unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, it's really something that maybe associations don't really have the resources to do in a lot of areas. They don't have a huge technology department that can really help with this and make your AMS work with your mobile app. So business intelligence being the last thing, kind of hitting on the same line, business intelligence or analytics. The integration has to work for the analytics to really work for you, and then you can start tracking those behaviors. Your marketing department can take those behaviors and then be able to classify who's looking at the app, who's using the app, and market to those people in the appropriate way. So, John, do you have anything to add to that last slide? And then also I can just hand it off to you on this slide.
Sure. Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is that on the last slide, that's not independent of whether it's if it's a simple strategy or a complex strategy. Those pieces are needed no matter what way you're moving. If you're doing a simple strategy or you're moving on to a more complex, each of those pieces are equally important in moving forward. As Justin stated, integrations can sometimes be a cumbersome or cost-heavy portion of this, but it's imperative, especially when dealing with association management systems, and that being your source of record for your members. Integrating that back into your association management system is key so that you can get a better understanding of your members and understand what the touch points are for those members.
So we do have a question, John. Simple versus complex also brings up a question we often ask ourselves. Do we really need an app or just responsive / mobile versions of web apps?
That's an excellent question, and it's something that a lot of associations or even corporations deal with on a daily basis. What you really need to ask yourself is, are your members using the app offline, or do they need to be connected? I mean, when we're looking at the integration piece and attempting to pull some of that data directly from your AMS, then a responsive design may work for you, but you then can't utilize some of those pieces that are directly part of your phone. So the ability to tap to call, the ability to tap to email, you can't utilize those innate features on a phone if you're using a responsive design or a mobile template. Whereas if you're using an app that is embedded inside your phone, you get to use some of those pieces, directly connect with the person's calendar, be able to pull contacts if so necessary, or push information into contacts.
And a very key part of making deciding on obviously you want a responsive design if you can do it within your your website when you create your website, or you're redoing your website, or whatever you're doing with your website. But when you come up with the app, that user value to have those people have that space getting, we all have limited space on our phones. I'm always constantly asking myself, do I really need this app? I haven't used this app in 3 months. It really has to have a value for them to keep it on their phone. Otherwise, it's going to get lost in the rest of their apps. They're not going to use it. So that creating that value is really, and it goes back to the purpose, business objectives, and then what they need. You really need to analyze kind of your marketing in the back end of this when you develop an app, and make something that's really going to be of value to that user. So I just wanted to hit on that little point.
Yeah, Justin, you bring up a good point. Is when you're dealing with apps, we're dealing about specific pieces, and that's what we're going to talk about even in this particular webinar, specific pieces that you are giving value to your customer. And whether it's an industry-related calculator, or you're looking to send published documents to individuals, you're not necessarily going to have someone continue to go to your website in a responsive design for that, because then you're overwhelmed with everything that's on the website, as opposed to what specifically what business objective you're trying to achieve. So, we ask ourselves, why mobile engagement? And the numbers keep rising for Americans and international individuals who own smartphones. Just last year, this was at 58%. Now it's 61%. It's interesting to even think about the fact that people may not have specifically a smartphone, and even though they may not have a quote-unquote smartphone, they have phones that they can pull information on. They can actually get a mobile site on. It just may not necessarily be smart, but it's continuing to gain market space. And you want to make sure that you stay on your member's phone, and that they are looking to you at all times as the point of information for their needs. So what can associations gain? Well, the number one thing, excuse me, that associations gain is the ability to instantly reach your members. I mean, that's the key point here, is to make sure that you always have a direct line of communication with your members, the ability to be sitting on their phone, sending them an instant message, so to speak, and letting them know about whatever's happening inside the association, whether you're working, or you're at home, or you're sponsoring a sporting event. You're on their mobile event, and you can push information to those individuals. The other key here is to reach non-members, and that's something that I think a lot of associations don't even think about, is the fact that you have a lot of non-members out there that you want to make members. If you want to be the go-to individual for your association and your members, you also want to be the go-to person for your non-members, so that they eventually become your members. You become the go-to app for your industry, and this will help you grow your membership, because they can see the return on investment. They give you their membership dues, and you're giving them a lot of information. And even if they choose not to become members, they're still continuing to go back to you to get that information. And with that is your promotion of your association, whether it's your events that are happening that where members and non-members go to, whether it's news that you have out there. You just have the instant mobile reference for your association. So along with those pieces, we're looking to create mobile independence for associations or individuals. And within that, we have 22% of associations are supported a mobile app at the end of 2012. There's currently additional surveys going out to attempt to get this piece of data updated so that we have 2014 data as opposed to 2012. But at the end of 2012, only 22% of associations supported mobile apps, and most of those were event apps. Now that's on the rise, but we're looking to balance the cost with return on investment, because as you can see in 2013, 55% budgeted for mobile development, whether that's actual responsive design, or we're looking at mobile app development, whether it's based off of a platform or it's actual development for iOS, Android, and so on. 78% of associations have a total budget of less than $25 million, so cost is a major factor. It's a key. It's something that we need to look at, which the question that goes back to responsive versus mobile template versus using some type of platform to create, its cost is a major factor, and we need to make sure that we're reviewing our costs when we're identifying those key pieces, those touch points for our associations. So the key here is what actually is going to make a mobile app engaging.
Hey, John, before we go on to this, can I cut in on that last slide really quick? As we're talking about cost and budget, think about opportunity costs too. Can you afford to not be in the mobile market is something you have to ask yourself, given all the stats we gave earlier on what, where people are getting their data and where people are, and that's a huge thing to consider. Is what are you losing versus what are you gaining when you actually develop a mobile app? Because there is a huge, obviously in the future, it's going to be bigger than a regular computer. It's going to be bigger than your website, where people interact with you mobily. Now, responsive design and your website go hand in hand, yes, but you got to ask yourself, is this opportunity cost of not jumping in this market something that I can afford to not do? So
it looks like we have a question too. The question, any idea what an association should consider a good amount to budget for such an app? It's an excellent question. If you were look to purchase or bring on a mobile app developer, you're looking at possibly 2 developers, one for iOS and one for Android, and that can range anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 per year per developer. Now, if you get lucky and you can find a developer that does both iOS apps and Android apps, then you're looking at probably someone that's between $80,000 to $100,000. Now, how many apps can they pump out in the year? Probably looking, depending on the complexity of those apps, you're looking at maybe between 2 and 3 apps. We use a platform that allows someone to push out an app within about 30 days. There's cost behind that. There's platform costs, just like your content management system app. Content management system is going to cost you. But if you, depending on the types of apps you're looking to run, an event app is about between $5,000 and $10,000. A enterprise-wide app could be anywhere between $7,500 to $20,000, depending on the integration and what type of interactivity you want on the app. Are you creating some type of gamification? Are you just moving forward with just pulling RSS feeds for your news? Are you looking to integrate your content management system and your association management system? There's a lot of pieces that go into that. So do I recommend a tool? So an add-on to that, I believe Scott asked, do you recommend a tool like Xamarin that could better support down the road internally? Yeah, I mean, certainly tools that you can utilize to help create mobile apps certainly would be beneficial. The question is who you want to create the apps and whether or not you have to train your staff to create those. Do you need specialty skills to create the apps, or can it just be anybody go in there and update and create? And I mean, the update piece is just as important as the create. So if you're looking forward to creating an app and then you move forward and say, okay, now I need to update this. Who do I need to update this? Do we have the right skill set to update? Some of the platforms allow an easy update, whereas some of the tools you need to have a specific skill set in order to do that. So if you have the skill set, then I certainly would recommend using tools to help you support it down the road. If you're looking for even help having just interns or moving to customer support or even marketing to help create your apps for you, then you probably would want to go to more of a platform or continue using responsive. Justin, was there anything else you wanted to add to that?
I mean, you covered most of it right there. You really need the skill set. That's the important part of it. And if you kind of think back and go back to that, that superhero diagram, when we talk about tools, we're obviously talking about how it works, maybe how it integrates, and the actual mechanics behind creating it. It's very important in another area you may want to look externally, not just internally, is someone helping you with, what is trending and what is important, kind of an outside point of view and help with finding out what's going to create that user value, and what works on apps, what buttons, where are people likely to, touch a certain button, and what's too much versus what's not enough when it comes to the features that are on the app and that type of thing. And that's always constantly changing. So these things have to be evaluated, and it's a lot of times, can't just be done internally. So you just have, if you do have the skill sets, absolutely do it internally, but make sure that, you have the right skill sets in place. And, I'm talking about from kind of a marketing perspective with that. But, getting beyond just the technicalities of creating the app, there's a lot that goes into these. So.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully that helps answer your questions. I believe that Xamarin is a tool that utilizes C#, so you certainly would want to have the skill set. And so, yeah, as Justin said, and as I stated before, if the skill set is there and you know that you can utilize that individual, then I certainly would recommend using a tool like that. I mean, a tool like MobileSmith, or there's many other different platforms that allow you to not necessarily need IT skill set, but mainly just an eye for detail may make sense in other organizations. So what makes an app engaging? This goes back to that superhero slide. It needs to be easy to navigate. Your members you need to get value from it, so it's a necessary tool for your members. It does get the users involved, so it's, that allows it to be sticky. Always updated with new material, and this is key. People are not going to come back to your app if it's the same thing over and over, unless it was designed that way. So an industry tool, like a calculator for a real estate agent, would be something that doesn't necessarily need to be updated constantly. However, if the calculations or are updated, then you need to make sure that those are updated as well, so the ratios. It gives you multiple reasons to use it, and that goes back to stickiness. Enables feedback and communication. You want to make sure that you're getting the feedback on your app, so that way you're understanding that those touch points that you thought your members were going to use, they are using. And this is right back to analytics. And like Justin had talked about in our superhero, the analytics are key. Understand, are your members using it? Are they not using it? Why aren't they using it? And then, of course, downloadable on multiple devices. There's a wide variety of devices that are out there between, iOS, Android. I mean, Android has multiple versions. There's BlackBerry that's still out there. There's Windows phones. You need to be able to download it on multiple devices, and you have to make a determination when you even do that. Is iOS and Android the only area in which you want to push to? And if you go with iOS and Android, do you create something that's responsive that goes along with that to Windows Phone? There's not a ton of Windows Phone out there, but I believe Windows is attempting to push and take over that the BlackBerry market, where a lot of businesses use them for their internal devices.
And there's also, if I can chime in right there, there's also differences. Now we're thinking about types of devices based on platform, but there's also type of devices based on type of device. So tablet versus phone. Apple TV. Apps can be in multiple different ways, and I know Apple TV isn't necessarily mobile, but if you think about the LinkedIn app, for example, the LinkedIn app looks a lot different on a tablet than it does on a phone, and it's optimized for a phone and it's optimized for a tablet. So do you need those features as well? Do you find that, tablets are a big thing within the people in your membership of your organization, or is it more phones? Is that something to even consider? Or do you create the phone app and just let them download that on the tab, and does it work, correctly for that? So that's just kind of another kind of weighed tangent to look at, making sure on multiple devices that it works the way you want it to.
Excellent. So this is a use case of a mobile event app that was used for Digital Now. There's a Digital Now 2015 app that's going to be coming out, I believe, as well soon. Here, personalized user experience was brought in to make sure that individuals was able to customize their agenda, be able to review photos, take photos, interact with others. And the next point, informs and interact. So you have your event menu, you have your event map, your venue information, and your video of the day, which allows people to pull updated information. This goes back to make sure that you're updating your pieces, that you're allowing your users to engage with one another. And it does allow users to connect with one another via your attendee directory. And inside there, when I talk about tap to email or tap to phone, if you had phone numbers in there, you could do a tap to call. If you had an email in there, you could do tap to email to connect with users. As these apps continue to progress, you'll have in-app messaging so that you can say, oh, I'm interested in meeting with you to discuss X that you have on your bio. And it will allow you to have that small communication, then set up a calendar event. So those are this is just one use case. You can gamify your app, which I believe the 2014 Digital Now app had a game on it for badging to see who could go through the most pieces and then be a top-rated individual at Digital Now. So what are some of the primary association apps that we found that are out there? Event apps are probably the biggest one out there. In fact, PCMA recently did a study, and they see a large area for growth in extending the life of meeting apps. In other words, you have your event app, and it's not just a 15, 20-day thing that you have on your phone. It extends it, and that goes back to the interacting with the individuals via your attendee list, sharing information that you found inside some of the seminars. And then additionally, PCMA found that there's a growth in smaller events and utilizing mobile apps for smaller events that then turned into creating a community around those small events. So the key here is, especially with event apps, is not just to have it a one-time thing, to grow with your event, grow with your community, and continue to share information. Moving forward with publication and news apps, it's a way to share the different publications you have out there, whether you're sharing excerpts from your publications or you're actually sharing the whole piece. It may be a way for you to sell your articles. If you sell articles, it may be a way for you to sell training so that people can then read the article and then take training. I believe that some organizations are looking into mobile chopped up learning. So in other words, 15-minute increments gets you a quarter of a point, and then eventually once you read the entire article, you can get a full point for some of your training. Informative apps, so member directories or attendee lists, like we talked about even in the event app, but member directories, schedules, it's just providing general information for your association. And then of course we have the industry-specific apps, which the tools like a real estate agent finder, tax calculator, closing cost calculator for real estate agents. So these are just some of the possible association apps that we've seen people utilize. We've also seen advocacy apps. So if something's happening in a particular region that you want a group of your members to reach out to their particular senator or their congressperson, you can create an advocacy app where it helps individuals do that.
And to chime in there too, John, I think getting back to kind of what this is all about is creating a simple winning app for associations. And you can have an app that might have all of these things in it, but now you're talking about a very complex app, and are people really going to use it and keep it? Is it too much? That type of thing. And what we're talking about is creating a simple app and in a simple way. So using, like, if you figure out, really what people need from your organization is the publications and the news apps, then that's what you should be starting with probably, and creating those publication and news apps for those people, because that's what they're demanding. And kind of you don't need to really have the rest of that quite yet, but maybe you have an event coming up and you want to do an event app, and you can work that publication news app in with the event app then at that point. But I think keeping it simple is kind of the key, and I just kind of wanted to bring that back, John.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And yeah, sometimes I get overly excited about talking about how associations start to use mobile devices to promote themselves. That, yeah, this is about the simplicity and starting out small. And one of the biggest things that we need to do is start out small. And we had a symposium last year where we spoke with 20 or 30 different association executives and talked about what has worked and what hasn't worked for them. And a lot of the individuals talked about the fact that they started out too complex. And we talked about how moving to something simple, starting with either an event app or a publication app, whatever that touch point is for your association, figure that touch point out. And once you figure that out, identify the key features within inside that particular touch point and what your members need. And once you start there, then you can start to expand. And in fact, as we move through here, we'll get into that. This is a Disney app, which is a native app that was created specifically for Disney. And the reason why this is up here is just to show you that, you can make your apps look whatever way you want to, especially when going native. Going with the responsive design, you wouldn't be able to make it necessarily 100% look like a storybook and have that imagery go through unless you're using a PDF builder where you're actually looking at the PDF and having that PDF kind of do some of these pieces for you, or you're creating a complete Java-related app that does this. But this is just a native app. But to move on to what I was referring to in the last slide, the idea, this is how we go about creating our apps. We're going to identify those touch points. What are those simple pieces that our association members are looking for? What are those one or two things? We go through it just like you would go through even looking at a new website. Do a requirements dump, and then once we understand those pieces and we're chopping it down, then we're going to move on to our design. And then from design, we have our mock-ups and we review, did we hit our scope, did we not hit our scope? And once we say that we're right on path, then we engineer and analyze. So an acronym IDEA, Identify, Design, Engineer, Analyze, is that specific tool that allows us to determine the touch points and then create an app beyond those touch points. So now, how do we identify this? Well, we we build our use case. What are the features that we think are our touch points? Maybe we use a weighted model behind that and determine what are the top features, and then choose the top 2 or 3 main features for our audience. And then we take those, the ones that didn't make the top 2 or 3 and say, okay, this can be phase 2, this can be phase 3, this can be phase 4. Putting in too much, as Justin was talking about, could possibly turn off some of your members. And as this bullet says, it may dilute your app. If it becomes too complicated right away and your association membership is not necessarily one that's even technologically inclined, if they see too much on there, they're going to say, no way, I'm done. I'm going to get rid of this app. And the key here is to building a use case is finding out those main features that individuals, your association members, are looking for, and they don't even know sometimes they're looking for those pieces. And that's where the touch points come in, is your individuals. You're going back to your association management system or your point of record and saying, okay, these are the top things that our members are looking for, and they don't even realize they're looking for it. We just happen to have analytics on this. Features to consider, just like we talked about previously, directories. Member directories are one of the biggest things that we have found out there that people are looking for. And then even getting so far as to go location-based, like we even talked about, I think, in like slide 4, where people are using location-based marketing to understand where some of the members are, where some of the individuals are, where consumers are. Store directories, industry-related tools, and access to relevant information, all pieces that we talked about a couple slides ago. But this just kind of goes back. When we think about those top 2 or 3 features, we think about member directories because we want to connect our members. Store directories, industry-related tools. I mean, these tools are probably one of the biggest things that's going to make people keep your app. What tools are they using? Where do they want to go? You get that tool on their phone and it's in your app. They're going to keep on going back to it. We found that even in fitness apps, people, the calorie counters, they want to know what the calorie counters are, and they're looking more at calorie counting than they are about how much they're moving. And once you get something, then you can start pumping information in. You can start pushing in some of your publications if they wrap around that as a phase 2 or a phase 3.
And think about, as you're developing what features you want to consider, think about the trends and the future of these mobile devices, and also think about the features that are actually on the device. So coming up, Apple's coming out with their iWatch, I believe, this month, sometime here in April. and that tool has a heart rate monitor on it. If you're an association that has to do with health and wellness in any way, shape, or form, or maybe you're in the healthcare world, maybe there's a way to utilize that feature into your apps. So there's things to be thinking about. The camera, what can you do with the camera? And the video is getting better and easier to use. And there's other apps that work out there with those cameras, and kind of thinking about what you see in other apps that maybe you would like to kind of pursue here, and features to consider that you can use those features of the phone or of the tablet or of whatever device it is, the watch that's coming out. What is it that you can maybe utilize within your apps?
That's an excellent point. One thing we haven't even talked about is social media and how that can be integrated into a feature on your app. And Justin and I were talking over the last week about the rise and fall of Meerkat, the storm that hit that was Meerkat, and then to find out that Periscope that came out, which is a Twitter specific application, does a lot of the same things and doesn't have to worry about Twitter saying, yeah, I want to play nicely with you or not, which they decided not to do with Meerkat, which brought Meerkat to a standstill. So understanding what's out there, what you can use, integrating a Twitter feed, and then possibly having a live feed inside that Twitter feed could be something huge when it comes to association meetings, allowing people to collaborate.
To specify too, for those of you that don't know, Meerkat and Periscope, they're both very similar apps in that they do live video feeds via Twitter. And just to clarify a little more, and again, that's something that maybe you can even embed into your app, is this live feed type of thing that Periscope is doing. Periscope is actually, I believe, owned by Twitter, and they kind of just put out Meerkat. So that's kind of where that argument, or that those two are butting heads a little bit, and Meerkat's kind of getting thrown away already because Periscope has the backing of Twitter. So.
Exactly. Thank you, Justin, for that clarification.
Yeah.
So moving from identifying, then we're like, we ask ourselves, how do we then design? So we have a mobile design methodology, understanding the business. Through that discovery, we're identifying, we're involving our members in the design process. By involving our members in the design process, they're taking a sense of ownership. And if you get your members to take a sense of ownership on your app, you're going to then have your own internal advocates, and normally you're going to pull people maybe from your chapters to start to help you out, and then they're going to be the advocate within their chapter for people to start using it, to give you feedback on what's working, what's not working. And so by having that, you're going to create your own solid user base that then is going to push out to additional users and eventually become a wildfire, and everyone's going to be using it. Through that process, though, it's iterative. You create your wireframes just like you would for a website. You go through conceptual and creative execution, and of course you do some usability testing. This sounds like a lot for your app, but this is something that's going to be on someone's phone, and they're going to be utilizing it day in and day out. And it's important to make sure that we're going through all these steps so that people do keep it on their app, that they do continue to use it, that we are continuing to update it. It's staying consistent. You have a consistent message. You have a consistent branding. Justin, who's our director of marketing, is big on making sure that we have consistent branding when we're moving forward through our apps. And it's important that your app doesn't look different. It doesn't communicate things differently than what your website does. Your app is going to be your focal point in getting people even pushed to your website. So going back to designing, we do start with the storyboard and wireframe. We do go through and understand what are the sequence of events, what are our main goals, what are the objectives, and as this slide states, anything over 4 clicks, people are not going to keep going through it. They don't want a lot of clicking. They only want to get to what they want right then and right there until you get them used to your app. And once you get them used to your app, then maybe they may go to 4th or 5th click, but usually by 4, they really want to get to the information they're looking for. And one thing I certainly wanted to talk about was the fact that a lot of people want to do a registration prior to opening the app. It's great to have registration. It's great to have people give you their information, but what we have found is that over half the individuals will just turn your app off if you are requiring a registration prior to opening the app. If you require a login or registration prior to opening, people may not keep the app because they just don't want to go through all that. They, we're dealing with a sense of individuals that want it now. They don't want to wait for it. They want it today. They want it right then. They're looking for it. If you give them the path of least resistance, then they're going to take it. If you put up a roadblock, then they're going to take a step back and say, okay, is this worth my time? It doesn't mean that you can't have a section that allows an individual to register, or you can't ask that right away. But if a person doesn't want to do it, you have to make it clear and concise that they do not have to do that registration. Otherwise, they will go to another app.
Now, John, do you believe there's kind of ways around this to still capture information? I know for a lot of apps, I'm just asking this question because I feel like it happens a lot out there when it comes to having people sign up for something when they first join the app. But a lot of apps actually will use the developer tools within Facebook or Twitter to verify an identity quote, which is really just a way for you to gather their information another way by them only having to click one button.
Right.
Because all the information then goes to the app off of the Facebook page. Sure. Is that a viable way to go around that, do you feel?
It certainly is. Absolutely, Justin. We want to know who's using the app, and we want to understand usage patterns in those individuals so that we can push it back to our state of record. So we want to make sure that we understand that. Using a Facebook or a LinkedIn integration into logging in is certainly something I would go forward with. If it's allowable, even with your AMS, I mean, the key here is that integration with your association management system and whatever it is that you're using to attempt to get someone to register or log in. If you're looking to integrate it with your AMS, you need to make sure that there is a LinkedIn or a Facebook integration point, so that way we can say, okay, this individual, John Scully, has just logged in via Facebook. It's the same John Scully I have in my AMS. Otherwise, you may end up having multiple individuals. So it certainly is a viable option. Like I said before, using an opt-out of logging in is possible, and they just have limited information. If they want more information, then you have them log in using their normal credentials or register using normal credentials. So it looks like we got a question. What about member-only apps? Is it a turn-off if members have to log in before data on app, at least up front? So you can have it. I mean, you can build your apps, whether you've built them natively, whether you're using a platform that if an individual logs in and there's member-only related data, it won't show. You can force it to have pages not show up or individuals not be returned based on the fact that they're not a member. So what we did for an association, Sigma Xi, we have it that if they're not logged in, they only get 2 pieces of data from your member directory. But if you are a member and you log in, there's like 17 pieces of data that they can get within a profile. So it is possible to say, if you're not a member, you get 3 pieces of data, but if you are a member, you get about 20 pieces of data. It depends on how you've developed it, and you can do that whether it's native or you're using even responsive or you're using a mobile management system. Does that answer your question? I hope. If it doesn't, feel free and just, oh, excellent, it does. Super. All right, so we're going to jump in. So after it's designed, obviously the engineer phase is to create the app, and then the analyze phase is all about testing. So when we're deploying our app, it's all about testing, and it's really key that we are testing, because without our testing, we could think that it's working on Android 2.6 and 2.7 and 3.0, and it may not be. It's really important to go out there and make sure that everything is looking the same. We have some phones that are 6 inches, we have some that are 4 inches, so understanding the differences and looking at it, an app may look great in a 6-inch screen, but then you go back to like a 5-inch screen and it may not look as good. It's really important to continue to test. It's important to continue to test in the different iOS in the different iOS environments, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone, and then you move on to Android and you look at the different types, whether it's a Motorola phone or it's a Samsung phone. It's just important to keep testing.
And like I said earlier, things are always changing. You got the iWatch coming out, and that's going to have its own app area, and your app may be able to be on there, and maybe it doesn't look right on the watch. People are going to use it. So, and you know, you got to consider all these things as technology moves and changes.
So, I mean, the key then, once we have our app designed, we're asking ourselves, is it sticky? So will people continue to use it? And people will continue to use it if you continually update it. And there are interactive features that the feedback that you're getting from your users, you're actually then able to employ back into the app. As you can see from the stat, 1 in 4 apps are downloaded and will not be opened after the first use. And once you've used it, you've gotten rid of it. I'm guilty of that. You know, I have apps on my phone that I go back and I look at them like, why did I download this? I mean, my children are huge, are big into this. They download an app which they think is going to be kind of cool. They start playing with it, and after 1 or 2 uses, they're done because it's not updating itself. It's not sticky. It's not keeping their focus. It's not interactive, and it's just something that they then eventually dump. And as this states, 75% of users are likely to drop an app by the 10th use. The key here is that if we've created this the correct way, if we've identified, if we designed, if we've created this so that it's engaging and it's continually updated, your app will stay on past the 10th use because people are continuing to use it. You are that point of information for their needs within their association. So if you are in travel, you know, people are looking at your app because you're continually updating, saying, okay, there's a travel advisory in Mexico. Okay, now there's an issue with weather in the Midwest. As long as you continue to update it, people will continue to go back to your phone, to go back to your application. So new trends, some may call these new, some may call these, you know, they've been around for a while, but one of the keys for location-based or Bluetooth beacons, it's key because they haven't been used a lot. Yes, the technology has been out there, but it hasn't been implemented well. Gimbal technology, along with others, have started to really focus in on making sure that the apps are doing what they're expected as you're passing by some of these beacons. As you can see, you can use it in giveaways, check-ins. You can gamify it by have you found the beacon that you're looking for. And the key here is one of those updates that I was talking about is that you don't want your battery to drain. Sometimes I notice my phone after I've gone to Twitter, it's sensing my location and just sits there and senses location for a while, and you're like, okay, I don't want you to drain my battery. That's one of the biggest things that they've been able to work on here is not draining your battery as much. And just like beacons, there is geofencing. Geofencing, you know, especially when talking about an event app, I think is huge. You can have a thank you or a hello note when they're walking into the hotel, or every morning when they're walking into your event space. You can just say, oh, congratulations, you made it to day 1. You know, look for X, Y, and Z. Or then in day 2, don't forget that we have a member meeting at 5 o'clock tonight, and we'd love to see you there. I mean, geofencing and beacons are huge at events and can be huge for your membership. I mean, you can integrate them into your member directories, where if you get within, you know, X feet of a member's store, that it pops out and says, oh, because you happen to be a member and you have this app, you get 10% off. So geofencing and beaconing has become big. It will continue to stay big. And more marketers are really interested in getting the data from individuals because they're understanding where you are and what you're doing.
I think the geofencing is even more important than the beacons. The problem with the beacons is people can turn off, and a lot of times do have their Bluetooth turned off. So the geofencing to me is a little easier to get the communication out, even though it might not be as tailored. Just because of the fact that it is kind of a static location and it's using something that's usually on in your phone automatically, which is the geo. A lot of people don't turn off their geo navigations.
Excellent.
So having said that, I'm going to kind of take over for John here in the last part, but we do, just to hit back on the apps really quick, and John, you can add to this too. As far as apps go, making a simple app is just the key to starting this strategy if you haven't already created an app, and doing it, or if you engage with us or engage with somebody, we can really make this process easy for you, and easy, hopefully easy on the pocketbook as well. I think that's kind of a main key with associations is the budget versus what you're going to get out of it. And we kind of understand that because we work with associations so often. Do you have anything to add to that, John?
Yeah, I think that, along with what you're saying is the ability to reuse what you've done. And, there was a question earlier about skill set and whether or not you want to use X tool or Y tool. The ability to reuse what you've done before can be huge for associations and can cut those costs. So if you go with something that's more of a mobile management system similar to a content management system, it can start to cut costs, and Justin and I can certainly speak about that offline if anyone's interested in that. But cutting costs are exactly where we're hoping to help with associations on.
Okay, and having said that, if you guys do have any more questions, I'll have a slide after this one with all of our contact information. And we would appreciate you filling out our survey at the end of this. It'll shoot you to our website, which as soon as you close the event, and it'll do send you right to our little survey so we know how we're doing on these. So all of that's big and helpful for us. We do have an upcoming event I want to notify you guys about. If you are in the DC area on April 16th, we are doing our second installment of the Central Executive. This is a continuing thing we're going to be doing twice a year now, and we might even bring it across the country. Right now it's a DC located event when we do it. And here's if you want to register, I have the website on the top there. So if you want to write that down and go ahead and register to it. We have a cybersecurity panel with 3 amazing executives on it. Alphabet Soup integrating, we were talking about integration today. We are going to have some really great speakers in a case study and an association executive. I can't remember off the top of my head who it is. But we have some really, really good content at this. And then I'll be speaking along with, John might be included in this as well. And then we also have another case study, and also Fontiva will be speaking about the member engagement piece on how to make that easy. So 3 really, really good workshops. We're providing lunch as well. And a lot of really good people, Excelsior College, Digital Now, ACGI involved with this. So we're trying to bring as much of this together for you guys and for your benefit as possible. Please do sign up for that if you are in the DC area on April 16th.
Yeah.
And lastly, go ahead.
I apologize, Justin. Yeah, as Justin was saying, it's a free event, and if you're unable to attend that and you want to just sit down and talk, we'll also be at Digital Now at the end of May, that we can just sit down and talk to you about whether it's mobile or it's about any of our other services, from managed services to cybersecurity. Yeah.
So we just had a question, can we get a copy of this presentation? Absolutely, I will send you guys all a thank you. As soon as I actually have it recorded as well, so I'll send you the recorded copy as well. And we'll have that in a thank you. Look for it within the next 24 hours because the video does take a little time for me to switch. But here's our contact information. Again, we would love to, and follow us on YouTube is where we typically will put all of our webinars and events. And it's really easy, youtube.com, and then it's Simplified Technology. Follow us on Twitter, Bros Group, and here's our contact information, John and myself. We would love to be able to help you with any of your questions or needs when it comes to this mobile stuff or integration stuff or anything you might need technology-wise. And again, that event coming up April 16th would be fantastic if you guys can attend. Having said that, I think that's about it. If there's not any more questions, if there is any more questions, I guess I'll put that out there. Does anyone else have any more questions? And I'll kind of blank for a minute here. Doesn't look like we have any more questions. So for those of you that were on today, I want to thank you from myself and John. And we hope to see you at the next one and our next event coming up. And then we'll also be at Digital Now, as well as the AE conferences coming up. So hopefully we see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.